Hey guys, this is Caleb with DSLR Video Shooter, and today we are finally checking out the incredible Aputure 300D. First and foremost, I want to thank Aputure for sending me a copy of the 300D to be reviewed. It's been a little while since it's been released. By now you've seen several different reviews out there talking about what comes with it. We'll briefly cover that toward the end, but I really want to talk about the story behind this light and why it's so special, especially in today's world, coming from really dark ages in LED to where we are now. It's just ridiculous. So I'm going to cut to the chase and say that the Aputure 300D is a monster, but unlike other beasts, it can be tamed with the gentlest of touches. And I'll get to that and the significance of that a little bit later. So let's start and jump right in and talk about power and output. So the 300D, as its name suggests, gives us 300 watts of LED output. Don't get that confused with a 300 watt, incandescent fixture. This is a whole nother league, as we're going to be seeing. Aputure states that this light can compete when it comes to output to a tungsten 2K fixture. To find out if that was true and to compare it to some other popular traditional lights, I teamed up with Colin and Igor from Greyspot Visuals, and they helped me put together a light test, so huge shout out to them. We spent a whole day checking this light out and comparing it to other popular options from rental houses and kit that a lot of us might own or have owned. We compared the 300D to a 1 and 2K tungsten fixture, in particular the Mole Richardson options, a Joker 400, and the massive Litepanels Hilio D12, which is a crazy high output LED light fixture. Now these types of comparisons are difficult because it's kind of like comparing apples to oranges, in that all the different lights have different open face, spot, flood, beam angles are all completely different from each other. So it's not a perfect comparison, but it will definitely give us an idea of where this light stacks up for the price, the power consumption, and of course the output. So the first test we did was a spot test with all the lights set to full spot at 10 feet from the light meter, and here are the results. The Litepanels Hilio D12 kind of destroyed the competition with 9600 lux, and the 2K came in second place with the Aputure right behind it, the 400 watt Joker in fourth, and finally the 1K tungsten fixture. The story gets interesting when we move to 1 meter away, and the reason I did this test, it seems kind of stupid to have something that close, but so many manufacturers are using this measurement with lux readings, so I figured we'd throw that in with the more traditional 10 foot. And at this distance, things are a lot closer together, with the Hilio D12 at 62,000 lux, the Aputure tying with the 2K at 50,000, and then the Joker at 38, and the Mickey Mole at 24,000. So this fixture is now at that distance and at that spot a little closer. And again, all the spots have different varying beam angles, so it's kind of hard to compare them, but that's what spot looks like. Moving on to flood, we saw the 300D dominate here with 3200 lux at 10 feet set to flood, with the Joker behind, then the 2K, and finally the Mickey Mole. And the Helios won't be in the rest of these tests since it kind of has a fixed spot mode, and we didn't want to try to confuse it by throwing diffusion in front of everything. For flood at 1 meter, the 300D also kind of destroyed here with 31,000 lux, then the 2K, then the 1K, and then the Joker picking up the rear with the soft Fresnel. So yeah, this light can definitely compete and easily could be a replacement option or an upgrade option for those traditional fixtures. So lighting stats are fun, but what about actually lighting in the real world? And this is where you start to see how awesome this fixture is. Because it's so bright, we can do so many different things and do them easily. So there were two things I wanted to look for in the upcoming test I'm about to show you and the lighting setups. The first was I wanted to keep a very wide frame. Since we have such a powerful light, I wanted to see if I could get really nice soft modified light and enough of it to light a very large shot. And the first thing I thought of when I saw this light at NAB in early 2017 was bouncing the light off of a white ceiling. A lot of houses and buildings have white ceilings or white walls, and so I thought this would be a cool way to take advantage of the output of the 300D. So the first thing I did was plop down on the couch and lit myself by pointing the light at the ceiling a little bit in front of me using the Fresnel lens at the widest beam angle, and it worked really well. You could easily use this for a key if you wanted to motivate the light somehow. And keep in mind, all these tests I'm going to be showing you here, I would definitely flag the snot out of these. I wouldn't just film them like you'll be seeing them, but I just wanted to show you with a single fixture how much light you could get into a space. But you could easily take this thing into a building if you were filming a space. Realtor videos would be a good example, and you could light an entire room with beautiful soft light by hitting this light off of a wall or a ceiling. The next thing I did was bounce lighting. So taking a non-wall or ceiling, in my case a 4x6 beadboard, and bouncing the light off of that as my key. Again, totally doable, and all these setups show that you could use this light and with soft light and modified light, light like 3 to 4 people very easily. I also took a giant piece of diffusion, in my case a 8x4 sheet that I bought on Amazon. It's actually a pop-up diffuser. It's really cheap, and shot the light through that. Easy, super easy to get lots and lots of soft light with that method. Going back to the test shoot that we did, special shout out to Rachael, who helped us out with the modeling there, and she sat down. We did a lighting setup with a 4x4 sheet of diffusion, shot the light through it, and we were able to get the light, I believe, 9 feet away from our subject, and we are getting 800 ASA at f4.8. Easy. This light has no problem with that. It's a very traditional lighting setup, and you could shoot interviews all day with nice wide framing without any problems at all. The last thing I wanted to try was a book light with a wider framing. This is one of the hardest tasks to ask of a light. Really tough for light fixtures because you're losing a ton of light by doing that. And the other thing is I had such a wide framing. I did move in a little bit since I was running out of space in my living room, but you get the idea. It worked. You have plenty of exposure. I believe this was 400 ISO on my GH5 at f4, so lots of headroom there for exposure, and this light just took it all like a champ. It is plenty of output to modify the light, soften the light, even at really wide framing. When it comes to color, things also look pretty darn good for this light. So I used my Sekonic C700 meter, and we got a CRI of 94, and CRI necessarily isn't the best way to measure color, but with this meter you can do extended CRI. So I was able to also check R9, which is reds, and for that we got an 80 rating there. Two other very important color measurements would be R13 and R15. Those are light and medium skin tones, and we got a 94.9 and a 94.8 for those. So this light has a great CRI, really good for an LED, reds and skin tones, which is awesome. And that kind of brings us into the next phase of this review, which is talking about that taming of such an animal of a light. So what I meant by that, and what I meant by a monster that's tame, is that traditionally to get this kind of output you have to put up with some serious compromises. One is heat. This light, pretty much no heat. It's a little warm if you're going to sit right next to it like I am, but compared to working with plasma or tungsten, HMIs, any of that stuff, the heat is just a joke. It's just not there. The other is weight. You can see I've got the light here on a pretty wimpy stand, so you know you really don't have to worry about a ginormous light. The next one is adjustability and fine-tuning. As you guys who have shot on tungsten and lit with tungsten, we're used to having to fiddle with dimmers that warm the light up. There's all kinds of limitations. Sometimes you just have to use scrims, which is a little screen you put in front of the light. Whereas with this light, I'll move it so I don't completely blind myself, but I can fire it up with a remote and I can dim it. And this remote is tiny, instant on. I don't have to wait for the light fixture to warm up. So really, really powerful stuff, and it comes with this tiny remote. super easy to adjust. The next one is power consumption. Again, 300 watts. You could put several of these on a single circuit without any problem at all. And of course, the last one is cost. This sucker right here is $1,100 roughly. So very economical compared to either renting or buying high-end fixtures. Now, so far I've only given this light praise, but there are definitely a couple things that I'm not wild about. The first is the accessories are external, and this is kind of a double-edged one. So right here I have the power supply, which is pretty bulky, and also the control unit, which is right over here. These are both external, so you have to rig all this stuff up. Coming from larger traditional lights, this doesn't bother me. The other thing is the power supply has a pretty noisy fan. I've actually had it at my feet for this entire video, so some of you may have heard it, but here it is. It can get kind of noisy, so you might have to buy some longer cables where you can hide this thing somewhere else. The last thing I would mention is there is kind of a color issue. Right here at the edge of the light, there's actually a color shift. Now with the reflector dome, which I have on there right now, it's less of an issue. If you bounce it or use the Fresnel, that's not gonna be a big problem. But if you take it off, as I'll do now, you'll really see the problem. So you can see right in the middle, nice and daylight. As I get to the edge, it gets really green and yellow. That's just something you're probably gonna have to deal with. I don't know if there's a fix, but it's something to keep in mind depending on how you use the light. So that is an overview and review of the 300D from Aputure. You can find it in the link below if you're interested in purchasing it or reading more about it. The real takeaway here is with a single fixture, you have almost unlimited possibilities. You have so much output. You'll be able to light really wide shots and be able to light it beautifully by modifying the light with bounce, diffusion, all kinds of different stuff. Lots of overhead. That's the story here. And that's going to do it for this video. Let me know, as always, if you have any questions in the comments below. You can watch fresh videos here at DSLR Video Shooter every Tuesday. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.